So, depending on how this journey goes, I may never forgive Chip and Joanna Gaines. Like so many other millennials, I've always dreamed of escaping to the countryside, acres of rolling hills, a cozy farmhouse, and that sweet, simple homestead life. But let's be real, life doesn't always hand you 20 acres and a wraparound porch. So instead of just dreaming, I'm starting where I'm at, right here, right now. I'm turning my little quarter-acre city lot into a mini homestead. Let's see if I'm really ready for that farm life I've always imagined. Let's start hoeing. Hi, my name is Paisley, and welcome to my channel, Hoeing in the City. I'd love to take all of you on this adventure with me, to test run homesteading on my less than a quarter-acre lot in the middle of the city in Utah. Let's see if all this hype of small farming is something I can handle. So why do we want a homestead? Well, like many other millennials, there's something that appeals to us about a more simple and self-sustaining life, where you're not caught up in the hustle and bustle of modern day and you have a sense of self-reliance. And also a confidence that if everything went to shit, I wouldn't be the first one to die. So another reason why we're kind of looking into starting this journey is because I have 3 kiddos, and I will be damned if they answer the question, where does your food come from, as the store. Now, as much as my children do actually know that vegetables come from a seed that grows out of the ground and that meat comes from specific animals, there's something to be said about that hands-on learning process of them deeply understanding what it takes to get their food onto the table. And I want that for them. There are many other reasons why I want to do this, but I'll leave you with one last one. I've experienced little bits and pieces of this farm life before, and I have loved it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I want to continue to experience that even though I live here in the middle of the city. I really would like to see if this is something that I can do on a small scale myself. And if I really do love it, how big of a scale I want to go with it. Well, where did this desire for gardening, getting chickens, maybe a goat, maybe even a Highland cow come from? Well, to answer that, we're going to go back to the year 2015. I was young, married, had a baby, and a lot of my free time was spent watching the second season of Fixer Upper. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my first inspiration for all this came from none other than Chip and Joanna Gaines. And say what you will about the couple, but it's the honest truth. And after they bought their farmhouse in Waco, Texas, they started buying livestock. And then Joanna started her little garden, and then she made, a few seasons later, she did her huge, fantastically gorgeous garden. And that planted the seed, pun intended, obviously. And from there, it was just something I've always wanted to get into. So depending on how this journey goes, I may never forgive Chip and Joanna Gaines. So within the midst of watching season after season, my husband, my daughter, and my pregnant self moved ourselves to Oregon. And this is where I got my first taste of kind of that homesteading life. We moved on to my husband's uncle's farm. Now, we use the term farm lightly just because it was like nothing commercialized. But he has a small orchard and rows of produce and like 40 chickens. But I got to learn how to care for the chickens and care for those crops and harvest the crops and take that harvest and turn it into delicious food. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing this. I loved it. And I especially love doing it with my kiddos. I'll post a few pictures of my babies up there so you can see them. But all good things have to come to an end. And sometimes they end more drastically than others. You're about to discover a pattern in my life, and here's the first instance. We loved Oregon. We wanted to stay, but things weren't quite working out. My husband's business wasn't panning out due to some government restrictions, and I was just a teacher, not really making much. So we thought long and hard about it, and in January of 2017, we decided to move back to Utah. Now, no hard feelings against Utah, but It's just not our favorite place. The weather isn't our favorite. The population isn't our favorite. Even the drasticness of the seasons is not our favorite. So when we made the decision to come back, it was a bit of a bummer because living in Western Oregon was such a majestic evergreen wonderland. But all things happen for a reason, and God, the universe, fate, they knew what they were doing, because that summer, the 2017 Oregon wildfires smothered the state. It got so bad that my husband's family had to evacuate the farm because the air quality got so bad. So as much as I really didn't want to move back to Utah, I'm actually very grateful for it because my family was able to avoid such a major natural disaster. So now what? We're back in Utah, but now I know what homesteading tastes like and I would like more of it. So what do? Well, my answer to that was, let's move again. So I figured my family was young and flexible and we could move somewhere more tropical. So I started applying for jobs on the big island of Hawaii. Now, to make a long story short, it didn't work out, which I was pretty bummed about. I had spent a lot of time and energy into this. One, because it would be an amazing experience for me and my family, but two, it's year-round growing season in Hawaii. We could have the most self-sustaining homestead that ever was. But God and the universe know better, because sure enough, in 2018, Kilauea erupted, which demolished the areas in which we were actually looking to move to. Are you seeing the pattern yet? Okay, God, I get it. We'll chill for a minute and we will avoid all the natural disasters. And that's what we did. We stayed in Utah and we continued our little city lives while constantly dreaming of acres of land and chickens. But as time went on, I got restless. So we went and took a vacation in eastern Tennessee and we fell in love again. I mean, small communities, longer growing seasons, southern hospitality. Sign me up, I'm ready. So that's what we did. I found a job out there and we moved. But I didn't quite realize what I was signing up for. The job was almost nothing like the job description. I was doing the workload of 4 people for the salary of 1, and the work environment was nothing like they had portrayed to me. So day by day was more and more miserable. But I was trying to keep it all together because this was one step closer to our dreams, right? Our dreams of homesteading. So I tried, but days of misery went by and my mentally ill ass could not handle it any longer. I broke down in front of my husband and finally told him what was going on. So we prayed and meditated about it for quite some time and then finally came to the decision that it was time to move back to Utah again. I just cannot leave this state. But lo and behold, in 2024, Tennessee and many other southern states experienced landslides and washouts from Hurricane Helena. So at this point, I really should start listening to the signs. And that's my tragic little story. So at this point in my life, I either hope that someday I'll get my large plot of land, or I start now. It's not ideal and it's not a big plot, but it's what I have. Many of us in our 30s are tired of hoping and waiting something will happen. We've been handed a not so great economic standing where it's more difficult to reach for similar dreams that our parents and grandparents had. Let's take control now with what we have. Really see if it's as magical as Chip and Jo make it seem, and let's start hoeing. Okay, now that my little pity party is over, let me show you what we have going on. This is my property line. It's less than a 1/4 acre and my backyard is approximately half of that, going right about here, which is a good amount of space, but I won't be using all of it. With my young kiddos, I want to make sure that we still have a bit of grass to play on. So making sure that's available for them. Now, we have 2 buildings in our backyard. We have one here that's a small storage shed. When I say small, I think it's like an 8 by 10. And then over here, we're currently working on building our wood shop. So like a project shop. And that one I think is a 12 by 20 building. So as far as our little baby micro homesteading goes, we are looking at this area right here. Now, before everyone goes, but Paisley, it's too close to the fence. How's it gonna get sun? Well, the sun rises here on the east and sets on the west. Also, this is north and this is our south. So in the summer, the sun literally starts right about here and goes up and over our property and sets in the west. It gets about the 8 hours of sun that it needs to be right here. Now, we do have a tree right about here that will give off a little bit of shade in the evening. So sun will set, and then as it sets right about here is when this will start getting some shade, but it'll still get the 8 hours it needs. Now, as far as livestock goes, this year we're only gonna get chickens, and the chickens are gonna go right here between the shed and the tree. In Utah, it can get really hot in the summer, and so I wanted to make sure that it had a good amount of shade throughout the entire day to make sure that the chickens didn't overheat. Now, I know this may not look like a lot of space, but we're really only thinking of getting 3 or 4 chickens for my little family. We don't need more than that. I'm sure we're going to be overdone with eggs anyway, so this should be plenty of space for them. Now, as far as the rest of the backyard goes, in the future, we may do some more livestock kind of in between here and here. And we are thinking of doing a really cool patio here. But as far as this year, we're really focusing on this area to get started. If you're also seeing all these magical experiences online of people dropping everything and moving to the country, but not sure if that's for you, let me be your guinea pig. We're starting from scratch on a micro level and giving it a shot. I'll give you the ups and the downs, the good and the bad, and some dirty jokes and curse words along the way. Come with me on my journey to get a real look if this could be something for you too. We'll find out together if we're cut out for hoeing in the city.